There's a quiet kind of power that doesn't announce itself with sports cars or mega mansions. It's subtle, strategic, and deeply rooted in time. While the world chases the next big thing, old money invests in what the public rarely sees: quiet empires built on patience, privacy, and permanence. These families don't measure success in quarterly gains or flashy headlines. They think in centuries, not seasons. And the assets they choose are designed to whisper wealth, not shout it. Before we uncover the hidden investments that old money uses to build generational power, make sure you subscribe to the Luxury Lane. Because here, we don't just talk about money. We reveal the timeless systems that keep families powerful long after trends fade. Now let's step into the world of wealth that doesn't need to show off. The hidden investments that quietly shape dynasties. 1. Land that never leaves the family. When you trace the wealth of any old European or American dynasty, from the Rockefellers to the Rothschilds, you'll find one unshakable truth: land ownership is the backbone of legacy. Old money doesn't buy land to flip it. They buy land to anchor their lineage. In England, families like the Grosvenors still control vast stretches of London, Mayfair, Belgravia, neighborhoods that have appreciated for centuries. Their wealth isn't liquid. It's layered into soil, structures, and leases that outlive every economic cycle. But what makes this investment so powerful isn't just appreciation, it's control. Land gives families a permanent stake in society. It means influence over zoning, development, and the future of entire regions. Even in the US, many old money estates quietly hold farmland and timberland, assets that generate steady income through leases, logging rights, and agricultural partnerships, all while preserving the family name on the deed for generations to the outside world. It's just land. To old money, it's the foundation of dynastic permanence. 2. Private equity and quiet company stakes. If you think old money pours everything into the stock market, think again. They know that public markets are driven by emotion, manipulation, and media hype. Real power comes from private equity, ownership stakes in companies that don't need to chase quarterly profits or Wall Street approval. Old money families often hold minority interests in essential businesses: utilities, logistics firms, packaging, energy infrastructure, and even funeral homes. They don't need their name on the boardroom door, they just need equity that earns quietly. For instance, the Mellon family, once known for banking, diversified into industrial holdings, venture funds, and private partnerships long before it was trendy. These private deals yield dividends without volatility, and most importantly, without visibility. That's why you'll rarely hear about them. Their wealth grows behind closed doors in companies the public never even realizes are partially family-owned. 3. Art, archives, and cultural assets. When old money collects art, it's not just decoration, it's preservation of identity. Fine art, historical documents, rare books, and antiques serve as both cultural capital and financial security. A 16th century painting might hang quietly in a library, but behind it lies an investment worth tens of millions. These assets appreciate not just because of rarity, but because time increases cultural relevance. They become more than investments. They become symbols of continuity. Families like the Medici used art patronage to project influence for centuries. Modern dynasties still do the same, funding galleries, restoring estates, and endowing museums because cultural assets legitimize wealth in a way money never can. And unlike cash, these assets appreciate invisibly, untracked, untaxed until sold, and often used as collateral for loans that fund other ventures. Old money understands. Influence is built not just through ownership, but through taste. 4. Trusts, foundations, and family funds. The real power of wealth isn't just what you own, it's how you structure it. Old money doesn't inherit money. They inherit control mechanisms, trusts, endowments, and family offices that allocate funds across generations. A trust ensures assets are distributed according to long-term strategy, not short-term greed. A foundation transforms wealth into social capital, funding causes that align with the family's values, and preserving their legacy through philanthropy. These structures protect wealth from lawsuits, taxes, and bad decisions. They make it nearly impossible for the next generation to lose everything, because they're not just heirs, they're beneficiaries of a system. That's why families like the Ford Foundation or Rockefeller Foundation remain relevant even as new billionaires rise and fall. The structure itself is the investment, one that buys time, reputation, and endurance. 5. Long-term resource rights. Here's a category that almost no one talks about: rights ownership. Old money doesn't just buy physical assets, it buys the rights beneath and around them. Oil rights, water rights, mineral rights, even air rights above urban buildings. These are hidden assets that most investors overlook because they're complex and illiquid. But to those who think in generations, they're gold mines, literally and figuratively. A family may own farmland that produces little crop revenue, but if they own the subsurface rights, they can lease drilling access for millions. Others buy water rights in drought-prone regions, not to sell today, but to ensure control when scarcity hits decades from now. This is the quiet genius of old money. They invest in the future inevitabilities the rest of the world ignores. 6. Heritage businesses that outlive generations. Old money doesn't chase startups, they cultivate institutions. A heritage business isn't just about profit, it's about permanence. These are the family-run enterprises that endure through wars, depressions, and political shifts because they were built with endurance in mind, not expansion at all costs. Think of C. Hoare and Company, a private bank in London founded in 1672 that still serves the same families it did centuries ago. Or the Rothschild wine estates, handed down generation after generation, still bottling prestige. The secret? Old money keeps these companies small, private, and personal. They resist going public because control is worth more than capital. They'd rather earn less and last longer. Every heritage business is a living lesson passed down the bloodline, teaching the next generation not just how to earn, but how to steward. That's the real investment, the transfer of wisdom wrapped in a profitable enterprise. 7. Rare financial instruments and bonds. While most investors chase stocks, old money quietly holds municipal bonds, perpetual trusts, and sovereign debt instruments, the kind of assets that rarely make headlines but pay predictably for decades. Some of these bonds are older than the heirs who cash their coupons. They may yield only a few percent, but that consistency funds family offices, properties, and philanthropy without risk or attention. The old money mindset values predictability over thrill. A flashy return might buy excitement, but a stable one buys power, the kind that funds every other investment. It's why old families prefer to hold debt issued by governments, not by corporations. They understand that governments can tax to repay their obligations. Businesses, they can collapse. So while new money gambles on crypto or tech IPOs, old money quietly collects interest century after century on instruments most people never hear about: timber, vineyards, and agricultural estates. If there's one thing that defines old money investment philosophy, it's this: money should grow while you sleep, and while your grandchildren sleep too. That's why agricultural assets are so beloved among dynasties. Timber estates, vineyards, olive groves, they aren't just beautiful, they're renewable and self-sustaining. A forest harvested every 30 years becomes a natural inheritance cycle. A vineyard not only produces revenue, but creates a heritage product tied to the family name. In France, noble families have owned the same vineyards for over 400 years. In the US, old southern estates have turned farmland into leasing businesses that sustain families for generations. The beauty lies in the dual legacy: cultural prestige and consistent yield. These are not speculative investments. They are time-proof ecosystems, each tree or vine a symbol of patience rewarded 9. Strategic real estate, but not the kind you think. Old money's relationship with real estate is completely different from new money's. They're not flipping condos or chasing Airbnb profits. They buy strategic real estate, properties that hold historical, political, or cultural leverage. For example, old European families often purchase properties near embassies, universities, or heritage landmarks. The value doesn't just come from location, it comes from influence and symbolism. Owning an estate next to a centuries-old cathedral or a private square isn't about view, it's about status encoded in geography. In America, old money families buy institutional buildings, think law offices, university housing, and medical complexes, because these are recession-proof tenants. Their leases may not be glamorous, but they provide something better: permanent cash flow without exposure. To the outsider, these buildings look dull. To the dynasty, they're invisible engines of generational stability. 10. Legacy collections and intellectual property. Here's a category that's easy to miss: intellectual and creative property. Old money has quietly mastered the art of owning ideas. It could be royalties from a classic book series, licensing rights to a family invention, or archives of patents collected over decades. Some of the wealthiest European families today live comfortably on royalties tied to music catalogs, trademarks, or heritage brands they no longer manage directly. Because, once again, the rule holds true: they don't sell, they license. They allow others to profit from their ideas while keeping ownership locked within the bloodline. Even the heirs who seem disconnected from business still live off the dividends of intellectual foresight their great-grandparents had. Old money knows that owning something that creates value endlessly. 11. The invisible network. Relationships as capital. Perhaps the most underrated investment of all isn't financial, it's social. Old money treats relationships as a form of compound interest. Exclusive memberships, long-standing family friendships, intermarriages between dynasties, these aren't coincidences. They're strategic alliances designed to preserve collective power. While the masses network for opportunities, old money networks for continuity. A handshake at a private club might secure a loan, a political favor, or a partnership deal that never appears in the press. And because these relationships are built on generational trust, not transaction, they endure even when markets crumble. It's not about who you know. It's about who your family has known for 100 years. That's the true definition of quiet influence. 12. The power of patience and privacy. At the core of every old money investment strategy lies one unspoken rule: never rush, never reveal. They move slowly but decisively. They diversify widely but quietly. They accumulate, compound, and preserve because they know that wealth exposed too early becomes wealth at risk. While new money posts its investments online, old money guards theirs behind layers of privacy firms, trusts, and foundations. You won't find their holdings on public registries because that's exactly how they want it. Their power lies in opacity. Their influence thrives in silence. That's why the same families dominate global wealth lists generation after generation. Not because they made riskier moves, but because they made invisible ones. Every generation of new wealth eventually learns one truth that old money mastered centuries ago: the loudest investor is rarely the wealthiest one. Old money doesn't just invest to get richer, they invest to stay relevant, to remain unshakable through recessions, wars, and revolutions. Their assets may change with the times, but their philosophy never does. They value what endures. They hold what multiplies silently. They invest not for excitement, but for immortality. So the next time you hear about generational wealth, remember, it's not just about money, it's about strategy, patience, and design. And those who understand that don't need to say a word.